A federal judge ruled today that BP was not at fault, not negligent, but grossly negligent in the Gulf of Mexico oil spill 4 years ago, or not oil spill, the oil well blowout that killed 11 people, spilled millions of barrels of oil into the Gulf, and destroyed hundreds of miles of beaches. BP, grossly negligent. United States District Court Judge Carl Barbier wrote in his sternly worded decision, according to the New York Times, quote, BP's conduct was reckless and grossly negligent. The judge also ruled that Transocean, the owner of the rig, and Halliburton, Dick Cheney's company, the company that cemented the well, were negligent also in the accident. But the judge put most of the blame on BP, which opens the way for fines of up to $18 billion. What is that to British Petroleum? 6 months' profit? A month's profit? I don't even know. But I know that $18 billion to an oil company is just the cost of doing business. According to the Times, Judge Barbier wrote a 153-page, densely technical decision. And the judge described how BP repeatedly ignored warnings, mounting warning signs, that the well was unstable, that BP was making decisions that he says were, quote, primarily driven by a desire to save time and money rather than ensuring that the well was secure, and that's a quote. The judge recreated painstakingly, the Times says, the hurried effort to temporarily shut in a problematic well deemed by some to be the well from hell, and show how a series of problems, many of which were suspected by the rig's crew, led to the blowout. And even after reporting these anomalies, the BP bosses ignored the results. And had they not been ignored, it could have prevented the disaster even in the final minutes before it blew, according to the judge. Now, what was in those densely technical terms, I guess at some point, since it's a matter of public record, unless BP hides it, which they will try to do, we could go read it and find out what he's talking about. But up until the final minutes, the judge said, had BP acted responsibly, excuse me, a corporation, an oil, please, everything they do is murderous and irresponsible. But had they acted responsibly, in the context of the impending disaster, it could have been prevented. Wow, up until the final moments. According to the judge, the company that owned the lease to the well, that was BP, was responsible for overseeing all of the drilling work. And that company, BP, displayed gross negligence, which in legal terms means it was responsible for willful misconduct. Willful misconduct. So the judge apportioned the blame. 67% of it goes to BP, 30% to Transocean, and 3% to Halliburton. Gross negligence, willful misconduct. 11 people dead. We'll be right back. Back to the judge's ruling about BP. Reckless conduct, grossly negligent, willful misconduct. And according to the 153-page densely technical decision from the judge, all could have been prevented. 11 people could still be alive today, or at least not dead as a result of BP's act of murder, if the warnings provided by BP workers on that rig would have been heeded by BP management, which they were not. This is a corporation. They don't listen to crap like that. What, are you kidding? But the rig is wobbly? Well, have another drink. Don't worry about it. Now, BP quickly put out a statement saying it, here's a surprise, quote, strongly disagrees with the decision and will immediately appeal to the United States Court of the Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. Well, of course. They're not going to take responsibility on this level. Are you kidding? Wasn't their fault. It was Halliburton. No, it was the other company. What was the other company? Oh, well. Now, according to a University of Michigan law professor and former chief of the Department of Justice's Environmental Crime Section, his name is David Ullman. He said, quote, today's ruling dramatically increases BP's liability for civil penalties under the Clean Water Act and further sullies BP's already badly damaged reputation. BP has long claimed, still quoting, that it was only negligent and that other companies were equally to blame for causing the Gulf oil spill. Judge Barbier's ruling makes clear that BP knowingly took the risk that caused the worst environmental disaster in U.S. history, and that BP was the worst culprit. And in its statement, end quote, from Professor Ullman, in its statement, after the verdict was announced, BP said the ruling, quote, is not supported by the evidence at trial. The law is clear that proving gross negligence is a very high bar, and that was not met in this case. BP believes that an impartial view of the record does not support the erroneous conclusion reached by the district court. How's that? The law is clear that proving gross negligence is a very high bar. How much higher can you get than 11 deaths, hundreds of miles of beach coastline utterly destroyed, millions of gallons of poison pumped into and subsequently killing the Gulf of Mexico, God knows how many dead marine mammals, birds, fish? Proving gross negligence requires a very high bar. What the hell does BP want to prove gross negligence? 1,000 dead? 10,000 dead? The Gulf of Mexico turn into the Dead Sea? Filthy sons of bitches. The thing that gets me about this ruling, not a single BP executive is going to go to jail. Where's the president of BP at the time this happened? Where are the board of directors? Where's everybody who has been taking money for years from BP? How many university endowments have BP stock in them right now, and why? Fines. In a capitalist society, fines because of gross negligence and destruction of the environment and death, fines are part of doing business. You factor it in. And then you try to lay off the fines as a legitimate tax deduction. So who winds up paying for it in the end, after all? The dead people? No, they're dead. The taxpayer. Oh, but let's stop the welfare mothers and let's cut the food stamps and let's get rid of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act sucks. Well, it does. But let's get rid of all that, but allow these corporations to continue to pillage and loot and burn and destroy